Hello, this is Sierra, and welcome to another video. Today we're doing another video reading Clockwork Chronicles, The Lost Hermits. We are starting with chapter 10, and we are on part 4, I believe. Yep. So yeah, let's get right into the video. If you haven't watched the other parts, be sure you do so, because there will be spoilers. Yeah. If you don't mind the spoilers, then it doesn't really matter, but like, if you just want to enjoy a good read, let's enjoy a good read, shall we? The hermit stood his ground as the man lunged at him, holding his sword up to block the man's advances. Feeling the force of the attack as he took a step back, he pushed back against the man as the man tried to push closer and closer to the bed where Green was lying, unresponsive to the situation happening in the room. "You know you can't keep me from getting what I'm after," the man sneered as he took a step back before lunging at Impulse as the hermit yelped in surprise as he was flung backwards, his sword flying out of his hand as it hit the ground hard. He just saw stars swirling in his peripheral vision for a few agonizing moments. He could hear the clattering of his fallen sword on the ground. The man stood up, shaking his head as he raised his sword to strike. He gasped as he ducked out of the way, as the man hurled the sword towards the hermit, lunging for his fallen blade as the man swerved to stop him. Bowles managed to grab his sword as he jumped to his feet, just in time as the man attacked again, holding the man back with his sword as the man sneered again. "You really are stubborn, aren't you?" the man mused as he shoved the hermit back. With brute force, Impulse hit the wall behind him. He collapsed to the ground, momentarily out of breath, as he looked up at the man wearily. "Too bad you won't delay me enough. No one's coming, Impulse." "You don't know that," Impulse. The hermit snapped, trying to stand before stopping, as the man aimed the sword at his direction. "I could have called for backup." "Where are you supposed to back up then?" The man taunted as he turned toward the other hermit in the room. "It'd be too easy just to finish him off, right here. No? Not that you'd be able to stop me." "I could try," Impulse replied, noticing the sword was no longer in his face. He stood, grabbing his own warily. He paused as he heard the faint sound of footsteps outside. He smiled. "Ha! I'd love to see that," the man scoffed as Impulse lunged at the man, knocking him to the ground as the man's sword scattered across the floor, just out of reach. "Get off me!" "I don't think so," Impulse declared, shouting in alarm as the man grabbed him by the arm and yanked him off, the hermit flying across the room as he hit the wall, groaning. He looked up to see the man picking up his own fallen sword, as the hermit swallowed, just as the door opened. "Raise your hands where I can see them," a familiar voice commanded, and step away from Dippledop. "Excuse!" Impulse got to his feet, eyes wide, with a wide smile as the man turned, surprised to see the YouTuber standing in the door with a bow, an arrow nocked and ready to fire. "You think you can intimidate me with that?" the master snapped, shaking his head as he lifted his sword. "I have the advantage?" Impulse swallowed as the man glanced over at him, with a glint in his eye. Scarce cleared his throat, and the man lowered the sword, ready to fire. "Better listen to him if you know what's good for you," Matthias' voice said from behind. The YouTuber as kids looked back, stepping aside as both Matthias and Peter's escort walked in. "Oh, now we're talking," the man taunted with a laugh. "I'm not scared of this ragtag team we have here. Impulse, look out!" Skiz warned as the hermit yelped, surprised as he jumped out of the way just as the man turned to lunge at him. The hermit ran to where Green was still lying as Beetle's escort came in, and quite swiftly grabbed the man, and held him in a firm chokehold. Not squeezing, but holding him to prove a point. "You won't get away with this. You won't get away with this," the young man bellowed, struggling. "Let me go!" "You don't get to threaten my buddy and get away with it," Skiz said matter-of-factly, lifting his chin as the man scowled at him. The hermit excuse me. The YouTuber lowered his bow as the V-Dub's escort began to drag the man out of the room. Once the two escorts left the room, the YouTuber turned to ask the hermit, "He didn't hurt you, did he?" "No, luckily not." They both chuckled nervously before turning to Green. I'm gonna need Jem to help me with this. Do you think you can get her for me? Of course! Skates ran out of the room, the door not closing this time around. The hermit looked out into the hallway as he heard voices. You sure you're okay, Blake? B-Dubs asked, not visible from the view, as the hermit could see as Impulse went over to the door and peeked out. He could see Pearl and B-Dubs helping Blake inside, who seemed to be mostly unharmed. Yeah, I'll be fine, the boy reassured him. I'm glad you guys came when you did. So friends do, Pearl said, piped in happily. Yeah. As she spotted Impulse watching them. All good in there, Andy? Yep, Impulse said happily. That guy isn't going to be causing us trouble for a while. How's Green faring? Blake asked, looking over at the hermit. He'll be okay, Impulse replied hesitantly, noticing both Keys and Jem outside, coming to the front door. Matthias could be seen outside with Pearl's escort. Impulse! Jem entered the hallway as she immediately went over to him. Keys right behind. What happened? Not entirely sure, the hermit admitted, looking over at her as he gestured for her to come inside. She followed him as she took a seat in the spare bed. He noticed the door closing as his kid was seen for a moment on the other side with a knowing smile. I heard noises outside, and Blake and I went to check it out. Next thing I knew, Green was there, and so was that guy. I can't say much else. Oh, it looks to me he didn't hurt you, she said in relief. You had another idea for the both of us, the hermit shuddered. I think Mr. A would have been happy with. Jem nodded, spotting Green on the bed as she got to her feet, walking to the bed as she looked him over. Well, the firework burn inside you seemed to be almost healed. That's a relief, Impulse sighed. Yeah, but he still has the injury where the man, I'm guessing here, stabbed him, she said calmly, pulling back the covers and the towel. Definitely doesn't look as bad as it did 15 minutes ago, Impulse reported as he went to stand beside her, peeking over her shoulder. Yeah, maybe some bandages soaked with healing or reach into it, she said thoughtfully as she went to the shoulder box and grabbed what she needed. Can you help set him up for me? Of course, the hermit affirmed, as he gently lifted up the hermit, keeping him steady as his friend groaned. He held him fast as Jem ran back with bandages and soaked with regeneration potions as she carefully bandaged the hermit, making sure she wasn't leaving anything, as Impulse held the sleeping hermit in his arms. That looks good. It should be enough. Jem nodded as Impulse looked down, noticing Green's eyes fluttering ever so slightly. Gently laid him back down. She let him rest. I'm down for that, Impulse nodded, as he hesitated, looking back at the door as the memory came back to him. The echo of the man, defeated and demanding that it wasn't over. Seeing the former backup crew member so close to discovering its friends, he looked toward the empty wall next to him. Impulse? Jem asked, as she put away the spare bandages into the shoulder box, dragging it back to the corner as she crossed the room. Something wrong? Nothing's wrong, Impulse sighed. I'm just nervous. But what? Well, I wasn't sure if I wanted to ask you, the hermit trailed off as he looked over at the empty wall. Is it something about what you couldn't tell me before? She put a hand gently on his shoulder. Pulse nodded. How do you think a secret room would sound? Bigger than this one? In case we needed to hide more hermits? Or anyone else who might need it? I think it's doable, she offered with an encouraging smile. How big are you asking? Like a bunker, enough to fit at least a dozen people? Does that sound fair? Impulse asked, quickly adding, I mean, we might not need that much space, but it's better than cramming a bunch of our friends in this space. It's too small. She giggled before stopping herself. Wait, are you saying what I think you're saying? Did anyone tell you about what happened to us? Impulse asked curiously. How we got separated from some of our friends and weren't able to find them? Yeah, she said slowly, looking up at him curiously. Someone might have mentioned it. Well, XP found them not too long after we got back and hadn't told anyone about it until recently. Impulse, the hermit admitted sheepishly. She nodded, her smile returning. So you found them? They found me? Impulse. The hermit corrected. I think you were hiding something, she teased, laughing. Yeah, let's get working on that, so we can keep an eye on Green in the meantime. First, I'm going to grab some redstone for the door and security measures. I'll start working on the room, and then take the redstone off your hands. The hermit offered. Deal, she said with excitement as she ran to the door and opened it, leaving the hermit alone in the room. The only thing he could hear was Green's soft, rhythmic breathing. He pulled out he pulled out his pickaxe and smiled. There was some work to do. Chapter 11. Oh, laughed at that bitch. Impulse looked around the room, nearly furnished and complete. There were at least 5 beds that he put out, leaving more in the chest sitting against the wall by the door. There was a small kitchen area, a lounging area, an area for additional farms that Jim had set up. They weren't automatic farms, per se, but that was okay. It would probably be better off since it wouldn't necessarily make a lot of noise. The room especially looked lovely. Beams going up the walls and ceiling, plant life spewing from the ceiling down the wall as the hermit put down a carpet, making sure everything was set. He wasn't sure when they might need the room, but it was better to have it sooner rather than later. As he went to the stairs, entering the first secret room as he closed the door behind him. How many secret rooms does someone need? Green's voice asked as the hermit jumped, turning to see his friend sitting upright, with a smile on his face. How long have you been awake? Impulse asked him with a smile. Not too long, the hermit admitted quietly. The hermit definitely looked far better than he had a few hours ago. Am I bedridden or anything after what happened? I don't know, actually, Impulse said softly. Should you be? I feel fine, Green shrugged as he pushed back the covers. What have you been up to? Nothing much, Impulse sighed, shaking his head as he gestured to the wall. Just finished this thing off, though. That's good, Green smiled as Impulse hurried. A door opened and closed, as muffled voices could be heard from the other. As the other hermit frowned. I'm not even sure how I even got here, to be fair. What do you remember? Impulse pressed as they heard footsteps coming down the hall. Before Green could answer, the door opened as Scar picked his head in. Well, hello there, Impulse. Green. The hermit said cheerfully as Jelly snuck around him and walked into the room, jumping on the empty bed as she curled up into a ball. I heard there was a bit of a commotion here. Yeah, Green chuckled nervously. Why are you here, though? Oh, Matthias thought it might be a good idea for me to stick around here for a day or two. Scar shrugged. Caden kind of insisted, actually, come to think of it. Bowles looked over at the hermit, seeing Green bite his bottom lip as he nodded. Bowles spoke up. It's good to see you made it, okay? Yep, no harm done, Scar said with a shrug, as he looked over at Jelly, crossing the room as he picked her up. Come on, let's find a room for us to rest our weary heads, and leave these two in peace. You don't have to go, Scar Gary said quickly, as he moved his legs over to the bed, touching his feet to the hardwood floor. I'll be back, don't worry. Scar mused, looking at the two of them for a moment. Oh, okay. Green nodded, looking away as the hermit disappeared. What happened? Impulse said quickly, as the hermit began to kick his legs back and forth. Impulse walked over to sit down next to him, waiting. I was leaving Scar's place and the man made it move, Green replied quietly. He came out of nowhere and grabbed me out of the sky. Caden came to help me, but the man overpowered him and chased after me. It was terrifying. Why did he hurt you? Impulse asked, looking him up and down. He got me down a few times, threatened me. Threatened Scar too while he was at it. Hermit sighed, looking up at the ceiling. Well, he can't do anything now. Behind bars, Impulse replied confidently. Doesn't stop Mr. A from making another move. Green nodded. Next thing we'll know, he will went after one of our other friends. We might not even be so lucky next time, if he decides he wants to. He already decided what he wanted to do, Impulse said calmly. He sent the men after me to kill me. He sent him after you to finish you too. Green nodded his head slowly. So, what would he do now? I don't know, Impulse said wearily, looking over at the blank wall. Thought for me, right? Impulse? Green asked quietly. The hermit snapped back into attention, looking over at his friend attentively. Do you think we still have a chance to stop him? Finish this? I'm not sure if we should finish this. Sure, Mr. A might keep coming after us, but it's mainly because he wants to give us what we deserve. Excuse me. And the frustration that we keep messing it all up. The hermit managed to smile. If he really wanted to make it hurt, maybe he doesn't have to target us. But who then? What? Green pressed, dark eyes searching for his own. The hermit swallowed. She stood, pulling out his communicator, glancing over his friend. I have a really bad feeling I know the answer to that. The Green said nothing as he opened the secret door to the wall again and disappeared, pushing a few buttons as he arrived at the bottom of the stairs, hoping that it would connect. He wasn't sure how much time they had, or if it even were what the men were after. But he knew Mr. A was smart. To try and break them little by little. He had to stay ahead of the game, to stop him at his game or someone to hurt. Okay. Chapter 12. We are doing fine. Let's keep going. The hermit paced the room, trying to connect the device in his hand as he sent out a signal on the communicator. Each attempt left him with nothing as he stared down at the machine. He tried another set of coordinates. Still nothing. Neither XP or the other hermits were responding. Impulse frowned as he stopped walking, pocketing his device as he glanced upstairs, wondering if he should go back and ensure everything was okay. Maybe the gadget was defective for some reason. But all of them to fail to connect? Something wasn't adding up. The additional effect of no distress signal seemed even more worrying as he climbed up the stairs, seeing Green still waiting, sitting on the bed expectantly, having not moved from the spot. Well? Green asked hopefully. Bill shook his head. I can't reach them. Who are you trying to reach? Maybe I could try, Green offered, pulling out his communicator. No, it's fine. It's possible they aren't answering on purpose. Hermit paused thoughtfully. There's nothing else you can do? Green asked as he stood from the bed, crossing the room slowly to meet him. Stop, guys. Full of uncertainty. I don't know why you did this scrambly, but that is weird. I could try something. Impulse hesitated, pulling out his device again as he tried another set of cords before shaking his head a moment later. That's a negative. I need to find protectors. Where are you going? Green followed him to the automatic door as Impulse pressed the button open. I need to go back and check on some of our friends, Impulse replied matter-of-factly. XP? Green frowned as he continued to follow Impulse out. How did you know? Their other hermit demanded. More impressed than anything. I might have overheard a little bit of your conversation with Jem. Hermit admitted sheepishly. Impulse sighed and nodded. You really should be resting now. You're still recovering. I can't just stay here when I can help, the hermit insisted as Impulse entered the main room to find Blake sitting in an armchair with Matthias, interrupted from their previous conversation. The two hermits entered the room. Can we help you? Matthias asked, turning to face the hermits. I can't reach XP or the others, Impulse said quickly. I've also tried an escort. Nothing. Something's wrong. Wouldn't they be able to send a distress signal? Green turned to his friend. Not always, Blake replied. Especially if there's a potential ambush. Or a trap. Matthias frowned. Why were you wanting to chat with him anyway? I wanted to tell XP what happened, and suggest we move the others here, Impulse offered. Especially since someone was snooping. I was worried they might have ill intent. Is everything alright? Kaden entered the room from the kitchen as Green's face lit up, seeing the escort. Impulse was relieved to see the man was all right. He'd probably been the one to bring Scar here to start with. Our friends could be in trouble, Green straightened, as if he gained a new purpose. Impulse couldn't reach them. The likelihood of being a trap is just as high as it being something worse, Impulse replied, trying to ignore his shaky voice as he said it. Mr. A's men were sent to do something horrible, or... I just want to know what's going on. We should at least check, Blake replied with a nod. We Can't just leave the hermits here, though, with just one or two of us, Scythe warned. It could be what Mr. A might want. How would he figure out about the failure of the assassins then? So. Impulse pressed. Unless someone was spying on us during the events, you wouldn't have known yet. Do you think someone is? Green asked quietly, looking at the window as the question slipped through his lips. We won't be alone. I know you wouldn't allow that, Impulse said quickly. Plus, this is pretty much a fortress at this point, thanks to everyone pitching in. Maybe we could go with? Green offered. We're stronger in numbers. Plus, it'd foil whatever traps the men could have. It's still risky, Miss Dice admitted wearily. Still better than us being on our own. Green shrugged with a smile. Besides, even if we were with you, the men could still find a way around it. So it's better if we're together, if anything. It should be all right with me. Pearl's escort, Beat-Up's escort, and Caleb. Kaden said thoughtfully. You forget, Matthias. We have an army at this moment. True. Matthias nodded, looking over at Blake, who nodded and returned before turning to the hermits. You will not leave the premises until we come back, okay? We'll try, Bill said confidently, glancing over at Grian, who nodded with a tad more reluctance than he was hoping. I'm going to see if Scar is up for some fun, Grian replied quickly, as he dashed to the stairs, skipping every third step as he sprinted to the top. I hope you friends are okay, honestly, Blake said, got to his feet as he strode to the hermit. But it does seem awfully convenient. You got invisibility, Bull smiled at the boy. They can't follow you if they can't see you, nor can they know anything is amiss if they can't see you. Very well, the boy agreed thoughtfully as he turned to Matthias, who got to his feet. We'll be back with your friends if it turns out you is the best option, Matthias reported to Hermit. Please don't be long, Impulse said hopefully, as he watched the two of them quietly walk to the staircase in the hallway. If anything happens and everything else fails, call us, Matthias pressed. It should be okay, Kaden reassured the man with her nod. They're safe with me. I should hope so, Matthias replied with a frown as he eyed Hermit. Are you sure Jem knows where I'm going if she asks? Of course, sir. Impulse nodded as he watched the man leave with the boy disappearing around the corner as he heard the sound of footsteps climbing down steps. This really does seem like it has traps written all over it, Kaden replied. Kaden shook his head with a nervous chuckle. But for whom? Them or us? Impulse asked. Or do they even have a trap at all? We'll see. The cause member shrugged before looking at the stairs. See if you can't set up some of those extra security measures. Never hurts to be cautious. Bull said nothing as he did what he was told, climbing up the stairs as he glanced toward the window for one more moment, only seeing the fortified wall before reaching the top. They ought to be safe here. Mr. A surely wouldn't work this fast, would he? Or had this been a backup plan all along? Unease filled him as he looked down the hallway, not sure what he'd find at the end of it. Anything could be through those doors, or nothing at all. The fact that he didn't know was unsettling enough. So he couldn't just do nothing. XP and the other hermits could be in trouble, and for all he knew, it was already too late. He didn't know. So, and as long as that was true, there was hope. Let's see if we can finish this. Chapter 13. Impulse walked down the hallway, the silence drawing on as he double-checked the invisibility detector in the middle of the hall. It was still on and working as intended. Nothing seemed out of place either. The hermit found one of the doors in the hallway was slightly ajar as he peeked in. He was relieved to see both Green and Scar in the room, Jelly curled up on the pillow in the bed. Sound asleep, the two hermits turned as they heard him approach. How's the view from out there? Impulse offered with a smile as he opened the door the rest of the way. I don't see any sign of trouble, Green reported with a shrug. Neither do I. Scar shook his head, looking over his friend's shoulder. The sun was high up in the sky, shining its light into the room as Impulse tried to get a better view. He could just about spot Beat-Up's escorts patrolling the top of the wall. but the hermit could not see past its perimeter through the trees. Everything seemed calm, peaceful. You think the others are on the other side? I don't see them, Scar pointed out as he looked over at the hermit. Probably, yeah, Impulse said calmly as he stepped away from the window. Hey, I've got a few things I need to do. What exactly? Green asked curiously, turning away from the window. Kaden wanted me to set up some features just in case there was trouble, Impulse reported simply. Well, everything seems fine right now. Scar shrugged, going over to the bed, leaning against the corner as he gently stroked Jelly on the head, who was still curled up in a ball, fast asleep, on the soft white pillow. But if that's what you need to do, then why not? Yeah, I'll be right back. Bolt smiled. Just wanted to see how you two were doing. We'll be fine, Green reassured him with a nod. Okay, the hermit replied as he crossed the room, reaching the door as he glanced back for a moment. He could see his friends discussing something quietly amongst themselves as he began to close the door, leaving it open a crack as he looked back into the hallway, not seeing anything amiss as he started to go down the hall. It didn't take him too long to get to the end of the hall as he pushed open the farthest down and stepped into the room. It's fine. It wasn't too big, only having a bed, table, and a few other gadgets. He could see an old version of the communicator resting on a corner table. The controls worn and the screen blank. He paid no attention to it as he turned to what he was looking for. Hanging on the wall was another control panel, similar to the one in the secret room downstairs. It sleek, glinting in silvery metal against the sunshine. The curtains were brushed aside as he walked up to the device and fiddled with it a little bit. Once he was satisfied, everything was properly set up. He took a step back and glanced out the window, hearing the distant sound of voices as he headed over to it. The hermit looked down, smiling as he saw figures walking across the field. He could see his friends down there, while the escorts scouted the top of the walls, ensuring nothing came in. His friends hadn't noticed him yet as he watched them, smiling as he debated whether or not he should open the window. It was ill-advised, especially if a new mysterious man had an integral and good aim. He'd been advised not to open any windows whatsoever for any reason unless it was necessary. Now was not the time, as he watched his friend around the corner, disappearing from view. He stepped away from the window as he checked the machine one more time, making sure everything was set and ready to go, when he heard the sound of shattering glass and a scream from somewhere in the hallway. His attention redirected as he ran to the door, slamming it open as he stepped out, seeing another door open as both Scar and Green stumbled out into the room. What was that? Impulse asked quickly as he began to cross the hall towards them. The floor beneath them began to shake as his voice drowned out an earth-shattering explosion. He faltered, steadying himself as the other two headed towards him. There's one of those eliminators by the wall, Green said quickly, and managed to shatter the window from the other side. What is it doing here? Impulse queried as he looked out the room, seeing Jelly casually strolling out of the room as another explosion nearly knocked the trio off their feet again. We need to get out of here, Green said worriedly, looking to the stairwell. I thought you said that we couldn't leave the building, Scar pressed, starting to head towards Jelly as she playfully bounced out of his reach. Jelly, get back here! We don't have time to play right now. I think so long as we stay within the walls, it should be fine, Impulse corrected. Though we should avoid that if it's not safe to stay on the premises either. I think I might go for the latter option, honestly, Green said nervously, as a third explosion erupted from the ground between the group, as a red laser shot through the floor, evaporating the floor as it crumbled to the ground. As Green and Impulse looked down to see the machine staring up at them. Scar, we need to go! Green called. Impulse looking up as the hermit managed to successfully grab Jelly from near the stairway as the machine grabbed onto the floor, attempting to pull itself up. I'll be right there! Scar called back as Impulse pulled the hermit from the hole, as the giant machine began to pull itself up, its large figure obscuring their view of Scar and Jelly. Get out of there! Green screamed as the machine stepped onto the floor with a crunch of wood, its claws piercing the surface as it faced where the other hermit was standing. I'm going! Scar called back as Impulse heard the hermit charging down the stairs as the machine stomped in pursuit. Green pushed himself away from the hermit, charging at the machine, pulling out his sword as he went for it. Green, be careful! Impulse insisted as he heard voices downstairs. There's another one down here! Scar's assistant called from the bottom of the stairs. Impulse ran to his friend as Green lunged on top of the machine, attempting to stab it as it thrust itself backwards. Green screamed, flying back as Impulse managed to catch him, as they both collapsed to the floor. Get down, Scar! Vito's voice warned, faintly from below, as Impulse sat up, looking up at the machine, turned from the stairway, facing them. Its formerly red eye was now a sickly green. It swallowed, hearing his friend's cry of pain. Hang on. Impulse groaned as he got to his feet, pulling out his shield as he stepped in front of his friend, blocking the machine's view of the hermit as his eye redirected him. The hermit feeling the familiar humming in his mind. The image is faint, almost colorless in its peripheral vision. Took slow deep breaths and held firm. You knew how to deal with it. How are you doing that? Green gasped as he managed to get to his feet. He stumbled, spotting the fallen sword as he grabbed it, standing just behind his friend. Pretty simple, actually. Just think of good memory. The pain and images are all in your head, Impulse told him, turning as he gave him a quick nod. Green smiled, nodding back before calling out in warning as Impulse turned his head, raising his shield just as a red laser blast hit the wood and the hermit stumbled back by the force. Green, I need you to go behind and try to get to its weak spot while I'm distracted. On it, the other hermit replied as Green swooped around the machine gracefully with his wings as Impulse relaxed a little, the red laser having ceased, seeing his shield was ashen black and smoky as he swallowed. I don't think the shield can hold out for much longer, Impulse reported as the machine readjusted itself, looming over the hermit as it raised its claws. Impulse gulped as it brought down one of its claws towards him, the claw opening wide to grab him. He blocked the attempt with his shield as he took another step back, hearing the machine lurching backward as he peeked over the shield. Green was holding tightly on the back of the machine with one hand, his other firmly holding the sword as he prepared to strike. Impulse lowered the shield, and the machine took a step back, slamming itself along with Green against the back wall. Green! Impulse cried as the machine stepped forward, the crunching wood under its feet, watching his friend fall to the hardwood floor, groaning in pain as he struggled to sit up. I'm okay. Green gasped as the machine turned toward the injured hermit, as Impulse tossed the shield aside and grabbed the spare axe. The machine loomed over his friend as Green lifted its head, attempting to scramble away, the machine reaching out to grab him. Oh, no, you don't! Impulse hollered as he heard his friend's cry of alarm, and the eliminator managed to grab him, lifting him off the ground, clamping between the two pinchers. Impulse threw the axe at the exposed back of the machine, hitting the mark as the machine shrieked in pain. Help! Green cried as the machine lurched forward, releasing him as he fell. Impulse ran forward, catching the machine as he groaned, feeling the weight of the metal as he looked down to see his friend lying on his side, meeting his eyes. I don't think I can hold this guy up for much longer. Impulse grunted as he tried to shove it up backwards, struggling as he heard footsteps charging up the stairs. Dibbled up, are you up here? Skittis' voice asked. The hermit didn't have to answer, as he heard feet approaching him, as he noticed his friend stand by his side, holding up the machine with him, and they both pushed it out of the way, as the hermit stumbled a little. Thanks, Impulse said breathlessly, with a smile, as he heard another pair of footsteps behind him, turning to see Pearl kneeling to check on Green, who managed to sit up. I'll be fine, Green insisted quickly, as Pearl pulled out the medical box. She put it down next to him. I know you will, but you still don't look too great either, she chuckled as she pulled out a healing potion, its red liquid sloshing a little bit in a clear bottle. This should do it. Thanks, Pearl. Green managed a small smile as the took the bottle from him, uncorking it before taking a sip. I never want to do that again. Impulse shook his head as he noted Skids. Don't want to read that. Walking over the charge shield, half broken on the floor. You held back the laser with a shield? Skids asked curiously, looking up at the hermit and he smiled. Oh, well. Bull knelt next to Gran, offering a hand to him to take once the bottle was snooped. Think you can walk? I'll say why not, Gran mused. He took the hermit's hand, helping him to his feet. Thanks. I'm just glad you're okay. Impulse nodded as he wrapped an arm around him before looking at Brill. So what's the plan? Well, I'm not entirely sure, honestly. Brill shrugged with an amused smile. It's probably be a good idea for everyone to hide out for a while, especially in case Mr. A sends more of those things our way. You think Mr. A knows we destroyed his toys? Skid tilted his head thoughtfully. He knows, Green stated calmly, looking over at the hole in the floor. He definitely knows. Impulse nodded, straightening as he approached the staircase. I'm guessing beat-up's gems and the other took care of the second one? Yep, Pearl agreed with a grin. Scar and Jelly are safe. There's nothing to worry about there. Good, Green smiled, looking up to meet her eye, with four of them near the stairs. Let's get you downstairs to get some rest, Impulse offered, hesitating before adding. Hopefully Blake and Matthias had better luck than we did. They've got it. Skids replied confidently, as he smiled brightly. You should probably stay with them for a bit. What about you? Impulse raised an eyebrow. I'm your bodyguard until Blake gets back, Skids said determinedly. Impulse chuckled and smiled, matching his friends as he pulled Green a little closer, grabbing the railing. The four of them walked down the stairs, arriving at the bottom as Pearl activated the secret door as it opened. Impulse was dealing a glance into the main room as he spotted the others observing the remains of the second illuminator. Yet an uneasy feeling having gone away, as he ran into the secret room, onto the stairs, guiding him to a bed as he let him take a seat. The secret door closed behind him, as the Impulse looked over his shoulder, seeing nothing. Can I have a drink? Real quick? Yep. Stop. I'm sure the others are fine, Green said softly, redirecting the hermit's attention as he turned to face him. I know you're worried. We don't know how many of those things Mr. A has under his belt. Impulse swallowed as he took a seat in one of the spare chairs in the room. For all we know, it could already be too late. We don't know. We don't. Green pointed out gently. We'll hear back soon. I hope so. Green Impulse, the hermit, glanced over the sealed door quietly. There could be hundreds of those eliminated in his possession. Honestly, especially if he managed to find a way to store the energy he needs to power them. You think he did? Green asked curiously. Impulse shrugged as he looked away from the door. I honestly don't know. No matter how many there are, we know how to destroy them, at least, agreed so confidently. The other hermit chuckled. He'll probably find a way to upgrade them to protect the vulnerable spots on the machine. So it's not indestructible, Green replied. I'd be more concerned if he managed to make those things smarter. Or sentient, Impulse frowned. He glanced over at his friend. Yeah, Green said, looking away from the hermit as he climbed into the bed, pulling covers from under him and trying to straighten them. That'd probably result in not only downfall, but danger to everyone. I'm sure we'll find a way if that happens, Impulse stated calmly. Green smiled sadly, nodding his head before looking one more time at the hermit. I'm going to get some rest. Let me know if you hear anything. I will, Impulse promised with a smile. The other hermit crawled into bed. His back was turned towards him, not showing Green's face. Impulse leaned back on his chair as he looked back up at the ceiling. The plain surface, a blank canvas, as the mind began to wander. 14. Impulse stared up at the ceiling of the secret room, unsure of how much time had passed, as he heard footsteps just outside the room. He could also hear distant voices, as well as he straightened. Seeing Green had managed to make himself comfortable in the bed, and was now sound asleep. The hermit smiled as he got to his feet, walking over to the sleeping hermit as he gently pulled the covers over him, letting him rest as he neared the door, putting his ear to it as he listened. First, he was unable to distinguish the voices, but he could tell that there were more than a few. Curious, the hermit went over to the button and pressed it, fairly certain that it was safe to come out, as he stepped out in the hallway. "Hey, Impulse," the kid said with a cheerful smile as Impulse turned to see him, leaning against the wall, casually watching him leave. "Hey." Impulse smiled, hearing his name being called in the main room, as he heard a familiar voice. The hermit left the hall as he went into the room, eyes widening as he saw his friends arrive safely, and from what he could tell, mostly unharmed. "Seems to me you weren't the only ones who ran into trouble." Jevin mused with a grin as Impulse got up to meet them. "Where's Tin?" Impulse asked quickly, noticing that not everyone was there. "He's fine," he said calmly, the hermit looking over as he added. "He has a mining system fairly deep underground. No sort of machine or Mr. Aidman would dare be able to find him down there." "You saw the eliminators?" Impulse pressed, glancing out the window as he saw the crumbling wall through the window, where one of the machines must have cut through. "More than one," Jevin confirmed with a nod, frowning. "Somehow one got into the secret tunnel system and found us. We managed to call for XP when we were able to call for further aid." "Yeah, if he hadn't sent Matthias and Blake to get us, we would have been toast," Corella said aptly as Impulse nodded. "I'm glad you're all okay," he said as he turned to see Blake, standing by the window, overhearing the entire thing. "Matthias is talking with XP in the kitchen," Blake replied to him calmly. "Probably wants to take these guys to their new room for a little while longer." "You got it," Impulse replied as he cleared his throat. "Jeb and I have a surprise for you, if you're willing to follow me." The other hermits didn't say anything as Impulse led the way to the secret room. As he opened it, looking inside to see Green was still sound asleep. "Hopefully we're not disturbing anything," Pizza whispered. Impulse chuckled. "Don't worry, you're not staying in this part," the hermit urged, that Matthew to follow. As he quietly walked into the room, Impulse triggered the secret mechanism as the wall pulled away, revealing the door. "Go on, one at a time." Impulse waited for as everyone went single file. Once they all began to descend, he followed them, hearing the door close behind them. "It'd be really inconvenient if Mr. Aidman were down here," Corella mused thoughtfully. "I sure hope not. It was fine earlier," Impulse said matter-of-factly. "It should be deep enough that the eliminators can't sense us." Jevin replied, frowning. "Right? That's the plan." Impulse smiled as they reached the bottom of the stairway, entering the room. Though it's possible Mr. A could upgrade it if he felt the need to. "Probably should have a backup plan, just in case." Jevin frowned. "We'll get there eventually." Impulse shrugged as he gestured around. "How do you like the place?" "It's really nice," Corella said brightly. "I could honestly live down here for months." "Yeah, definitely more spacious than the last one," Wells chuckled, as Sir began to check the room out, looking into chests, examining the beds, and so on. "Glad you like it," Impulse said with a nod. "You've really been a big help," Jevin reassured him simply. "We wouldn't be here if it weren't it for you." "I'm just doing my part," Impulse said slowly, with a shrug. "Helping friends and stopping bad guys. It's definitely my sort of fun." Hypno chuckled. "Well, I should probably go back up," Impulse replied, patting his pocket with a communicator as he added, "Call me if you need anything." "You know we will," Beef called back as Impulse ran back up the stairs, unable to shake the smile off his face. Finally, he arrived at the top as he opened the door again, slipping back into the room as he paused, feeling a shiver run down his spine as he looked up. He only spotted the vapor-like figure standing in the corner as it lunged towards him. As he hollered in surprise, being knocked to the ground as he felt invisible hands holding him down. "Get off me!" Impulse demanded as he tried to shove the figure off him. "I don't think I will," a cold, familiar voice said, as the figure appeared to view. "You!" Impulse said through gritted teeth. The timer smiled again. "What?" Smiled again. "Why do I do this to myself?" "Did you really think I wouldn't try to follow your friends back?" The man sneered. "We we should tell Mr. A. Here's what you've been hiding under his nose. From under his nose. Don't think that'll be necessary, a voice warned. The man barely had a chance to say anything, as he was yanked off the hermit, lying against the wall as his secret door opened. Impulse is everything. Oh. His voice trailed off as Impulse sat up, seeing Grian looming over the man who attacked him moments earlier. He's the same man who was snooping earlier, Impulse said firmly as Blake appeared at the door as well. We can't let him tell Mr. A about the others. I'll take care of it. Blake nodded as he walked into the room. Grian stepped aside as the young boy grabbed the man, hoisting him up as he pinned him to the wall, binding his arms behind him. You're going somewhere tonight? I highly doubt that, boy. The man snapped angrily, turning his attention to Grian. You regret that. I know. Grian lifted his chin as he stepped forward. I wouldn't talk to my friends like that if I were you, the YouTuber warned before straightening. Anything about that, Blake? Nope. Keep an eye on those two for me. On these two for me, though. Blake said casually, and the YouTuber smiled and nodded. The three of them watching the boy leave the room with the man as Impulse got to his feet. At least he got what he deserved. He shook his head as he turned to the other two, the door closing behind him. Are your friends settled at least? No one will find them down there, Impulse replied confidently as he smiled again. Anyway, Grian said nonchalantly as he walked over to the bed and sat back down. You two have any ideas of how we can prevent Mr. A from doing this sort of thing again? I have a few. Excuse me, with a knowing chuckle as he turned to his friend. What about you, Dibbleduff? There's still a lot of upgrading I could do, Impulse said thoughtfully as he looked over at the empty chair, pulling it up to next to Grian's bed. Fortifying the supposed fortress isn't a bad idea either. Agreed. Grian nodded, rolling back his shoulder as he straightened. Chances are we won't need to use it, but it's an option. Yeah. Impulse nodded, glancing between his friends before looking at the door. Silence grew as his mind wandered, thinking. There had to be some way he could do that they could would. What? There had to be some way that they could do to prevent those men from getting what they wanted. Especially Mr. A. Mr. A. What? The man wasn't as powerful or scary as he'd been in the past, and he knew the man would want to step up his game. So would they. They'd be ready. I keep repeating it. But yes. Anyway, that's going to be the end of this book. I hope you guys enjoyed. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next one, which is going to be coming soon. I have something you guys might like. Finally, it's been long overdue. Never promised, but an opportunity has arisen. And the clue